Hey everyone, Sycra here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to approach drawing and painting hair. So let's get started. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to start by drawing basic head shape. And now why I did this, even though we're talking about hair, is because hair sits on top of a head. And a common mistake that people will make is they'll maybe draw a face, get the ears in and the eyes or whatever, and then they'll put the hair, on top of this. And that's not how it works. You have to have a sense of where the head is and understand, the eyes are in the middle of the head. So the hair then has to fit on top of that head. So that's the first thing. Make sure when you're thinking about hair, it's always on top of a head shape. Alright, the next big thing is to make sure you're thinking of hair as a big mass and not as individual strands of hair. So let's say I'm doing spiky hair. What I don't want to do is start, drawing each individual strand of hair. It's going to take forever. So instead, I'm going to just block out where the hair is going to be, and then I'm just going to draw, the top contour of that hair. And here and there I can put some lines, but I'm not drawing each individual strand. And to understand these masses, what I'd recommend is just, go to Google and search for hair, short hair, men's hair, whatever you need to find. Go to the images and you find, tons and tons of reference images for hair. So study those and make sketches in your sketchbook. Try not to just, do it where you just draw all the different styles of hair. It's better, I think, to specifically have a character in mind that you need to draw their hairstyle for, and they have wavy hair, and then to look at that reference. And then block out the main shape. So it's important also to remember about the hairline. Now, where does the hairline come in? If the eyes are halfway down the face, then for men you could, go about split that top area in half, and then that could be the hairline. For women, it tends to be a bit higher. So maybe there's 2/3 of forehead, and then the last third is going to be the hair. And there's different kinds of hairlines. There's that pointy one. It's often put on vampires, and there's the straight one, and then you got to pay attention to this area as well on the side of the head. So let's just put in a hairline that's somewhat in between those two. It's not completely straight, but it's not super pointy either. And now the next big rule is to understand that hair is soft. Now, it might not feel that soft if you touch it, especially if it's spiky and you're touching the top of it, but it's important to draw it as if it's soft. So even when I do the hairline, I'm not going to do this and, really draw a defined line for that. And when I do the mass of the hair, even if I separate it, I'm not going to do heavy, dark lines because hair just isn't that way. Where it meets the hairline, it's actually a pretty soft transition. So how do you get that? Well, one way is to just, draw your lines light. Another way is to almost go over your lines multiple times, and it gives this appearance of a softer transition. Something I like to do is to just here and there kind of give some marks that go over both the hair and the face. So to zoom in closer, if this is the face and this is the hair, then I'm just doing marks like that, sometimes like that, you know. So that's another important thing to keep in mind, that hair is soft, and especially this hairline transition has to be soft. Now where you can use a harder line is, let's say this is a girl's head and she has her hair go up and then over. So at this point where it's the hairline, it's going to be soft. But then this line on this side, right here, that can be kind of hard, and that will be contrast, right? So you have it's soft where it meets the skin. Anywhere hair meets the skin, even on the back of the head, wherever, right? It's going to be soft. And then, you know, if it goes over like that, and it's not touching, it's not growing out of the skin here, then that can be harder. All right, now another important thing is to understand that in this head, you have the face, and it goes like this, right? This face. And then it curves and goes back here, right? And then it's going back and behind. What happens too often is, not so much with a side view or even a 3/4 view, but with a front view especially, is if you're thinking about the head and you have hair, and let's say I get my eyes in, my hairline, and then you just think of it, you know, on top, as if it's a flat shape on top of this. So you're not really thinking in terms of 3 dimensions. So just get some ears here, and let's just say the hair is doing this sort of thing. And you might just think of it as if it's sitting on top of this section, and then do something like this maybe. But the problem is, you really have to have in your mind the idea that it's going back in space here. Because this part of the head, where it turns, that's here, right? So you have all this that's going back in space. So if you did have hair, and it's doing that sort of thing, you know, in the front, then remember that you still have hair on the top that's going to show, and it's going back. And doing that is going to give you more depth. So you'll be separating the hair into more planes where it's not just, you know, this bang area that's showing, but it has more volume, and you can sense really it's going back. And sometimes even just feeling that and knowing that is enough to change the way you'll draw the hair. All right, really quickly, I want to clarify, because I don't think I was absolutely clear when I said hair is soft and hair is hard. What I mean is not the texture of hair, although that can be soft. It's more, I'm talking about edges here. So what is a hard edge and what is a soft edge? In drawing, a hard edge might be something like that, and a soft edge would be, you know, either a lighter line or a line that's a bit like that. So these are soft, and this is hard. Now, and that's drawing. In painting, a hard edge is going to be something like this, where, let's say, these are my 2 colors. Where these 2 meet, right here, that's a hard edge. A soft edge in painting is going to be where these two meet gets a bit, fuzzy. So here we have a soft transition. And a lot of my painter friends tend to have this issue where their transition is too hard. So if they're drawing hair, they might block it in as a big shape, which is what you're supposed to do. But then all along this hairline, it's a hard edge, and really it should be, should be a softer edge. There should be a smoother transition between these two. So it's almost like it blends from skin to hair. So that's just what I mean when I say hard edge and soft edge. All right, the next big thing I want to talk about is flow. Flow. So what I mean by this is, pretty much how the hair flows. And usually, let's say there's a situation where the hair is parted right down the middle. What usually happens is you get, the hair coming maybe down this way, and then that way, and then near the back, it goes around to curve to this side. So it's going from this side, and then it goes around, and then it starts going that way, right? So this is one type of flow. And usually back here, it goes quite a bit higher off the top of the skull. So here's the top of the skull. You can get even higher where, it goes quite high. And then it might lower down here, but then, it goes around. And you'll notice that I'm making strokes around. I don't just, I'm not doing something like this, just straight, because that's not describing anything. I want to describe that this is coming, in a certain way. And back here, you'll notice it's all going to a point. That's another kind of flow you can have where maybe, the hair might be parted here, and maybe there's a point here where the hair kind of all gets pulled to, especially if they have, something holding the hair here. It's all going to get pulled to one point, and it's going to come down. Here's again another flow. If it's men you're dealing with, they might not have too much. It's still going to be there somewhat, Say this guy's balding. We'll still have somewhat of a flow. The hair is going to follow around that head. So it's important to just keep track of that. And then sometimes it goes way off. So let's say the person has an afro. Well, it's all coming out, right? So first what I would do is just block in the big shape in a tone. And then just understand that this is all, coming outwards. So that's the flow in that case. Now where it really gets complicated is curly hair, and then you get flows, going all over the place. But it still follows, it's still going to go over the head. There's still going to be a skull underneath. So all those things you still have to keep in mind. Okay, now I want to talk about something that deals a bit more with painting, but it happens in drawing too, and that's the highlight in hair. Now, I've seen, so many types of different styles, especially, with anime, and then maybe they have hair doing something, and then they'll have like this highlight shape, and then, this area might go like this, and then this goes like this, but you have like that squiggly highlight line. I think people know what I'm talking about. If not, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like that shiny part, right, in the hair. first of all, you got to be careful that you don't make that too dark. Depending on the style, you can go lighter, but it's usually it's lighter than the local color. So that means if this is the hair color, maybe it'll be like this for the highlight, but it's not, you know, it's usually not going to be pure white. So again, it depends on the lighting. Sometimes it is, but let's just deal with this. So where do you put that highlight? So I'm just going to give this person, you know, let's block it in. Let's just say they have hair that comes around like this. And so this area is going to be behind the head, and the flow is going, so it's parted down the middle, and it's coming around. So where do we put the highlight? Well, it depends on where's the light coming from. So let's just say the light is coming from here, right? Maybe here. So I just did a cone, and the light's coming up. All right, now the hair is going to receive a highlight at the point perpendicular to where the light's touching. So that's kind of complicated, but it's going to make more sense if I think about this in a side view. So let's just do a profile view of this head. Okay, and the hair goes on top of the head, right? So let's say it comes around. Let's do that. Let's say the hair kind of comes around up. So it's not just coming on the side, like it's doing this kind of thing, right? So let's say there's that. And just to make it a bit more interesting, let's put a bang coming down like that. All right, so now from a side view, it's coming back, and then it goes around, and there's this back area. And we have that bang coming down. Okay, so let's assume the light's, you know, way back there. It's not like it's just really close, so it's going to affect it both the same. So what's going to happen is the light rays are going to be coming out, and they all go straight. They're all going to go straight. And so because they're coming in this direction, perpendicular will be like that, right? So the light's coming in this way, and then the point that is facing at this plane, perpendicular, so that's 90 degrees, is going to receive the highlight. So right here is probably going to catch a highlight, this point right here, because that's the plane that's perpendicular to the light. If you're not familiar with planes, it's something important to know. I'm not going to go over it too much in this, but just to break it down, this is a plane, 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 this is a plane. So the plane which is perpendicular is this one right here. So that's the area that's going to catch the highlight. So right there. So same thing on this 3/4 view. Light's coming down like this, and then you're probably going to get a highlight where this turns, right? Because that's happening on a turning plane. Here's going this way, then it turns, and then it starts going back this way, right? So where this turns is where you're going to get the highlight. And I made that way too light, so I'm just going to, you know, follow my own advice. I was just using the same light color, and maybe it's going to look more like that. Okay, now where else would the light hit? Well, let's say this bang, there's a point of this bang where the light's coming, and that again is perpendicular to the light. So then it's going to catch a highlight again. And anywhere that, any plane that's perpendicular to the light is going to catch some highlight. Now if the light was coming from this way, maybe it's better to look at it in this 3/4 view. But if the light's coming from this way, then maybe somewhere around here there's going to be a plane that's perpendicular to the light. Somewhere around here. So, you know, like that maybe. Or here. But that's how you figure out where the light's coming from. Just what is perpendicular to the light. And it gets a bit complicated, but if you can follow, then that's how it works. Okay, now I want to talk briefly about curly hair and wavy hair, and just how to go about drawing that. So let me just hide this. With curly hair or wavy hair, whichever, the way I like to think about it is a little bit like a ribbon. So if I was just drawing a ribbon, let's fix that color. Say I do something like that, and then I'm going to do the same line, and notice how it gets, like, it's wide and then it gets thinner. So I'm going to do the same line. And now if I connect these with a line, and then connect these, and then just erase here, 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 and here. Now I have like a ribbon, right? So that's kind of how I think of the hair, but it tends to have more volume. So, because this is very thin, to add more volume, instead of just having, you know, a straight line here, you can just, you know, curve that a bit. And maybe give a bit of space up top. Now I'm just drawing a line showing that this curve. So this area up here looks like the top plane. So the planes are going around like that. Okay, so now it's already got a bit more thickness. And then you can go ahead and maybe add some indications of how the hair is flowing. It's coming around like that. Comes around like that. Like that. And like that. And already it's starting to kind of look like curly hair. Now, when I'm doing these strokes, what's important is that you start heavy and you fade off. And it's one way of shading is that you can do things that way, where you just, you know, create a bunch of lines this way. And you start at the top and it gets darker, and then you fade off, and then the opposite way. Create some lines. And then maybe a few go the whole way across. And this is how you get that kind of shiny hair look. And again, we talked about how this highlight appears. I would do that after I think, or after I do all this, you know, thinking part. Then I would do that, because I consider that, you know, that's just a little bit of an easy trick to get hair to look like hair. So let's say I have this now, and just really quickly, I want to talk a bit about style. So this is a bit more realistic, but let's say you wanted to do something in anime style. What they tend to do is, instead of just having these lines curved just like that, they might add a bit more interest to the hair, and you know, sometimes break it into more segments. And I mean, with style, it's all about the fundamentals, and then you're just, you know, altering it a little bit to get those kind of style things. But anyway, so you could do it that way too. And now let's say the light is coming from which side? Maybe this side, right? So the light's coming from here. So what's going to happen? Well, the light rays are going to hit, and where's the highlight going to be? It's probably going to be on these points because these are perpendicular. So let's say it gets darker here and everywhere, and then maybe on this point, like right here, it's going to catch some highlight again. So I'm just going to darken this first, and then all of this side is this side. It's not in the light, right? So that's all going to be shadow. Let's just darken all that in real quick. And now maybe there is some reflected light, but it's going to get darker where the light can't get to. So in these areas, it's going to get a bit darker. And for this hair, it's going to have maybe a bright spot here, perpendicular to the light, bright spot maybe here. And maybe it gets darker as it goes back there because it's turning, right? So maybe this is perpendicular to the light, but then this is right on the edge where it turns. And now if you just add a few of those strands going around, kind of looks like pretty convincing curly hair. And then, you know, if you were just to do that over and over again, you'd have some pretty realistic hair, but that just, I hate doing curly hair just because it takes so long. But yeah, I mean, maybe it would be fun. But yeah, you start with that kind of thing, and then you can define, you know, where your curls go. And after a while, you just get used to that kind of shape. You don't have to plan it out as much, and you can think of how the hair is going to go, how it's going to flow around and then come this way and then turn and do whatever it wants to do, you know. And then the last thing I guess I want to talk about is how to add just some finishing touches. So let's say, let's get our head here, and just block in a big shape for the hair. So that's fine, and here I'm using a big brush, but if I was doing this with pencil, the way I would treat that is, I would, block in that, and then maybe just shade it like this, and get where the hairline is. So that's just my pencil tone. And then what I do is, you know, add more detail. And really think about how the hair flows. Maybe there's a part that, you know, comes over. You see this a lot in anime where they have these bangs that come over. And in this view, it's the same thing. I get the main shape of the hair, and I use that with the, you know, with the big mass, and then I'll get smaller and add, you know, individual strands just here and there if it's like messy hair. And it seems like there's a lot more than there are. Maybe I'll even use lighter colored hair strands. It seems like there's a lot going on in that you spent a lot more time than you really did, because really it's just, you know, it's just masses and there's not much work, but you get this look as if you really spent a lot of time doing the hair. And again, where it gets close to the forehead, I'm going to make that a light edge where the hairline meets, right? So that's pretty much it. Again, the biggest thing to keep in mind is to think of hair in clumps and not as individual strands, and to understand that hair is soft, understand how hair flows and where the light hits, and that it's perpendicular to the light. And pretty much you're set. So good luck and thanks for watching.